You're listening to Chris Benson on Radio Royal.
Welcome to the Benson Archive. I'm Chris Benson, and in this new podcast series I'll be going back through my archive of recordings to share with you various interviews I've done over the years. The plan is to release a new podcast episode once a month. That's a plan for now anyway. So, like, subscribe, follow, whatever you do, make sure you come back for more. So, back in 2007, I wanted to get involved in hospital radio. My first attempt was with Bradford-based hospital radio station Radio Royal. Whilst waiting for the all clear from the chairman at Radio Royal, I tried to arrange some interviews with guests, and Jim Bowen was the very first interview I recorded. The interview was recorded on June the 1st, 2007, using a portable voice recorder. I think I bought it from either Aldi or Lidl. And I held the recorder next to my home telephone with the phone in speaker mode to record the interview. 17 years later, I have restored the sound for this interview as best as I can, but apologies for any sound issues whilst enjoying this podcast. In 2002, Jim resigned from his job on BBC Radio Lancashire after making a racist remark on air. Jim was 65 years old at the time and made the remark on his radio show The Happy Daft Farm. On August the 27th, 2012, Bowen reunited with Happy Daft Farm co-presenter Sally Naden for a one-off show back on the station. The next segment of the interview includes Jim talking about his time on Granada television show The Comedians. Jim talks about Charlie Williams, who not only was Britain's first well-known black stand-up comedian, but was an English professional footballer who was one of the first black players in British football after the Second World War, with 173 appearances for Doncaster Rovers between 1948 and 1959. The next part of the interview is uncut, as recorded back in 2007. The segment may include a phrase that some listeners today may find offensive.
Okay, now on Radio Royal, we've got a top comedian and entertainer who's giving us a fantastic interview. Please give a warm welcome to Jim Bowen. Hello there, Jim.
Hello, Chris. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Hope you're well.
Yes, I'm good. I like the top comedian bit. That makes me feel better.
Well, you've been in the business, is it about 40 years?
Oh, God, yeah. Started in 1970, 69, 70, when a series called The Comedians came along. Long before your time, that bred some fine Yorkshire comics.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Comedians, because about 10 years ago, I remember in my teens watching the Comedians on Granada Plus and seeing and Colin Crompton for the first time, people like that. And
that's right.
I used to watch the Wheel Tappers and Shunters.
That was a follow-up to it, yeah. That was in 1975.
1975?
Yeah, they did that for 3 years after that, because we used to do the working men's clubs, and Johnny Hamp, the producer, decided it might be a good idea just to gently have a little smile alongside the working men's club, so we built a working men's club at Granada. And we made I think we did about 40, 50 shows.
So, you know, with the Comedians, did they give each comedian a set length of time on the night, and then
Yeah, they did. We used to have 10 comedians a night.
Yeah.
It was usually a Monday night, and we were each given 12 minutes, no more. And that was it, which gave Johnny Hamp 120 minutes of television time.
Yes.
Out of which he probably got about 4 shows, because some of the gags we did were either too long or not suitable. In Bernard Manning's case, none of them were suitable. But yeah, that's how it works.
And there's a DVD actually out, isn't there, of the first series, I believe?
Yeah, there is, yeah.
What's it like? Do you think for stand-up comedians now it's harder to get in the business, or was it harder?
It's got to be more difficult now, Chris, because there's nowhere for them to learn the game. I mean, we could learn our craft in the working men's clubs before we ever got television. And when we got on television in 1970, there were only 2 channels, you see. So if you got on telly, you got on ITV on Friday nights on the Comedians. It was fast track, really, to becoming famous. It wasn't. I mean, the skill was trying to stay famous. That was the big thing. But anybody who went on the Comedians in 1970, yeah, it was really a career-enhancing move. You could become quite famous. I mean, people like Charlie Williams, lovely. It was the lovely black Yorkshireman, wonderfully funny man. Probably we lost him, I think, about 12 months ago now. Lovely Charlie. Well, it was Yorkshire accent.
Yeah.
Hilariously funny man.
Really
very, very nice man.
Yeah.
Because Charlie became a massive star, I can tell you now, because apart from the fact that Charlie's not with us, it's a long time ago anyway, but to give you some idea how massive the Comedians was, Charlie Williams in 1971 was earning £5,000 a week.
And that's a lot of money back then.
Well, you put that to today, and that's nearly Ronaldinho's wage, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
and that's what they're getting, Bernard and all the lads then. That's what they could earn on a good week. They could earn £45,000 a week.
That's unbelievable.
Massive.
And you did a similar show, but I think it's similar. I've not seen it. Take Two. It was on Thames, that wasn't it? Was that?
That was a slightly different show. That was like a late night chat show I did, and it only went out in London.
Right.
And it was a current affairs programme, and it chose a different subject every week to talk about. And I used to do 3 or 4 minutes in the gags about that subject, whatever the subject was. That wasn't too easy, but I think we did 26 of those. But it only did London. Went out about 10:30 at night.
For the majority of its run, Bullseye was in a regular slot on Sunday evenings. But did you know it originally aired on Monday nights in September 1981? At the end of its run, it was moved from its traditional Sunday afternoons to Saturday afternoons from 1994 to 1995. I'm really not sure who at ITV thought that was a good idea, to move a show from a slot that viewers had embraced for over 10 years. It just goes to show, Sundays wouldn't be the same without a bit of bully. The theme music for the show was written by John Patrick. Is there any other game show that has 2 different closing theme tune arrangements? An upbeat version, complete with comical sound effects, that was played when the contestants won the Star Prize, and a more melancholy one was played when they lost or nobody took the gamble. It was a stroke of genius.
So in 1981, ATV were making the game show that became Bullseye. How did you get approached to be the presenter?
Oh, it's a long story, too long to tell on your programme. But I mean, basically, it was being there at the right time, to be honest, Chris.
Yeah.
We'd asked 2 or 3 other people, and they either weren't in, the phone didn't answer, they were on answer phone or something, and I got it by accident. I really did. And after the first series in 1980, late 1980, I mean, I should have gone. They should have dropped me because I was awful. I was really terrible. But the one guy, the boss at ATV then, a guy called John Scofield, he said, we'll leave him there. He must have seen something there that nobody else saw. Anyway, thank God it worked. And 15 years later, of course, it proved to be right. And fortunately for me, I was still there at the end.
And Andrew Wood, the creator.
Well, he's a guy who he came up with the original idea. It wasn't his show. I mean, he just gave us the idea of throwing darts at subjects rather than numbers.
Right.
The real creator of the game was a man called Peter Harris.
Right.
He directed the first series, and he and I and a guy called Peter Holmans, the 3 of us actually built the game up where we had 3 couples, and we worked out the second round where it's pounds for points, and then we had all the ideas about nothing for 2 in the bed and all that. That was all ours. Wood just gave us the idea about throwing that. I mean, without Wood, there would have been no Bullseye, that is for sure.
And how do you compare it, looking back, to game shows now? I mean, I think game shows personally have dumbed down, I think, for audiences since then.
Well, yeah, they have. Well, there's no doubt they have. You just got to look at Deal or No Deal.
Yeah.
You can't get more dumb than that. And having said that, I mean, the presenter is a tremendously capable man. I mean, Noel Edmonds, you're not going to get better than Noel. But there's no intellect required. There's no physical skill required. You just have to say the number in the box. So yes, dumbing down is, and there's another one for the rest of your life, which is on that from BBC Two. It's all a question of just guessing numbers. Yeah, but I mean, it's progress, I suppose. You know, you get things move on. We've done all that there was to do with game shows in the 80s. So people were constantly searching for new answers. And Deal or No Deal came along and was one of them. A massive success. Massive success.
It was.
In 1989, John Cooper appeared on the show. He would later be convicted of multiple burglaries, armed robberies, and in 2011, following advances in forensic science, 2 double murders, 1 rape and another sexual assault. Footage of his appearance on Bullseye was later used by the prosecution to match him to witness reports at the time. For me, one of my favourite moments in the history of Bullseye came from a 1987 episode. Two middle-aged men won the 101 in 6 dart gamble, hoping for a car, maybe even a speedboat. But instead, they won a Bullseye fashion parade. Did Programme Makers Central do a deal with high street store C&A for this episode? We'll never know. But this episode never fails to make me laugh. £2,000 to spend on clothes. I wonder what they bought.
So, what do you think of the current popularity of Bullseye? I mean,
it's bizarre, isn't it?
It is, because when you made it back in the early 80s, you mustn't. I mean, the recordings originally were meant to be broadcast in 2007, I guess, weren't they?
Oh, absolutely right. I mean, we'd no idea we'd last that long. But again, it's like the title of the autobiography for discreet plug. Right place, right time. I mean, we made them in the 80s, and luckily we kept them. But with no idea in 1980 that there was going to be all this massive development in technology, and they can put the Encyclopedia Britannica on a postage stamp now, because there's been so much technological advance, IT, and with the internet and all these different channels, satellite, it all exploded in the 80s, thereby giving us another lease of life. I mean, they've got 320 Bullseye shows being transmitted now on Challenge and the Free Channel on BBC. We've no idea we'd still be there. I mean, I've no idea I'd still be remembered at the turn of the century. If you're in this business for 10 years and people remember you, you've done well. But here we are, 30 odd years on, and still people, in fact, probably more people recognise me now because more people have seen the series.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, it's quite frightening, but I mean, very enjoyable. I mean, it's lovely.
Well, sticking with game shows, you've done better than me on one that both of us have appeared on. I got to the second round on the Weakest Link and got voted off, but you've done better than that.
Well, I've done it 4 times, and I've won it twice, come second once, and came off for about 4th or 5th once. Yeah, Lionel Blair beat me once, and then I beat Jenny Powell, and then I beat Lionel again. I've done all right with it, but again, it's whether you've done it, you know what it's like. It's quite frightening anyway, even for us hardened professionals. She's quite daunting, isn't she, when she comes on?
It was so daunting. She just came out in a flash. None of us were, none of us were.
And you never meet her before, do you?
No, you never meet her before. They don't know that, do they?
All the celebs, when we did it, she wouldn't speak to us before.
Really?
No, she never spoke to us till afterwards. Then we had a nice drink afterwards. But when I asked her about, because I was like a bit of one of her favourites, I think, because she asked for me back 2 or 3 times. I think I'm the only one who's done it 4 times, actually. But she's a sweetie, really. She's a little pussycat, really. But no, she wouldn't speak to us before.
So she was quite kind. She was quite kind to you.
Where is she? I was going to have a drink before we started, and she just sent a message out. I'm not speaking to anybody after the show. And once she came on, through that backlight, she was all in black with a cloak on.
Yeah.
Quite terrifying, isn't it?
It was. It was. I mean, she tried having a go at me, but I think I got away with it.
But she has a go, doesn't she?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she has a pop. Yeah, she does.
Yeah, she does. Well, in recent times, you've been in Jonathan Creek. You've been in, and you also you was in Phoenix Nights, and also
in Phoenix Nights. I enjoyed that.
And the Amarillo video as well.
Yeah, I was in that. I did it with Mr. Blobby.
You was.
Me and Mr. Blobby. I had a wig on from Phoenix Nights. Do you remember when I was the hotel manager?
That's right. You did.
Sunshine Indoors.
Sunshine Indoors. Was that filmed at Blackpool?
That was done in a hotel at Blackpool. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So was that a good, enjoyable experience?
Oh yeah, but Peter Kay was lovely to work with.
Yeah.
And with so much fun in it. I mean, the scenes I did with him lasted. The total length of all the scenes I did with him was under 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And it took us nearly an hour to do them. Because I kept getting it wrong for a start. And we got the giggle as well, and I don't know if you know what it's like, but once you've gone, you've gone.
When you get the giggles, it's hard to...
Yeah, it's awful.
It is.
It's awful. I mean, you're ill. You're ill with laughing. It's terrible.
So, who would you say, Jim, are your favourite comedians of all time? Have you got a particular couple of...
Well, I'm a little bit American in a way. And I like that you not remember, you perhaps not heard of him, a guy called George Burns. Lovely aged American comedian. He was with his wife Gracie Allen in American Burlesque and Vaudeville. W.C. Fields I enjoyed. Bob Hope was fine. But people like Jackie Gleason, who was the sheriff in...
Smoking and Bandit.
You got it, yeah. That boy never came from my loins. Remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, what's his name? Safety something, I can't remember it. But he played a fabulous part in that. He was good. But the British comics, there's some funny men about now. Johnny Catherine's a good Yorkshire lad. Very funny comedian. And Peter Kay, of course, does very well. I enjoyed Tommy Cooper, I suppose. We all did. But the young comics, sadly, I can't understand a lot of them. I'm ashamed to say I can't understand The Office.
They're a bit alternative, some of them, Jim, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I did, last year, the year before last, I did the Edinburgh Festival. I did 21 nights at Jongleurs. And I sold it out every night. And I couldn't believe it because I was the only act up there with a bus pass. I mean, they were all 25 and 30-year-old comics. And I was going on and filling the place. But my stuff was it was old-fashioned, I suppose. But I've got off the gag routine. I don't do the gags, I just tell stories about Bullseye. That's what I did at Jongleurs. And what I do now when I do the cruises, I don't do the stand-up stuff. I just go on and tell them stories.
From the 13...
From the comedians, all the stuff you're asking me about now.
Yeah.
We talk, the people who go on cruises are usually in the 40s, 50s, and I do the war in hotels, and they're about the same, where there are no children go. It's not senior citizens, but slightly older people. And I just sit for an hour and talk to them. Tell them all the stories, and they enjoy them.
Well, that kind of leads us on to the next question, because you've got quite a busy year, haven't you, this year?
Well, it's looking. Oddly enough, Chris, I've retired really, but you don't retire in this business. Actually, what happens? The phone stops ringing. That the business tells you you're retired because nobody wants you. But I found that the phone has rung a bit. I'm doing all the Warner hotels this year.
Yes.
The adult weekends. That's not naughty adult. That's too old to do any damage. old. I'm doing 3 cruises. I'm doing the festival again, a couple of nights, but in a bigger venue. I'm at the Edinburgh International Conference Centre. And the odd dinner and bits and bobs, yeah, but not a lot. I'm doing enough. Just enough to keep the brain active, really.
Ah, well, that's brilliant. Well, that's great, and thank you very much for your time today, Jim.
It's a pleasure.
And I'm sure the patrons have loved hearing this interview on Radio Royal. And
well, they'll do well at Radio Royal. All you guys, we're in Bradford, aren't we now?
That's right, yes.
Well, all you people listening, I hope we all get well very, very soon. I know you're in good hands there. So best wishes to all the patients and speedy recoveries, and have a good year.
That's great, thank you, and all the best for 2007 for you as well, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Jim even recorded some personalised links for me to use on Radio Royal. As you'll discover in future episodes, I didn't end up as a presenter on Radio Royal, so these jingles weren't used. Sorry, Jim, but I share them here for you now. They're absolutely brilliant.
Okay, in your own time, Jim.
Well, now, on a special prize this week, listen to Chris Benson on Radio Royal at the Bradford Royal Infirmary. You can't beat a bit of bully. This is better than a speedboat. Chris Benson, Radio Royal. Look at what you could have won. Never mind that. Forget the speedboat. Listen to Chris Benson on Radio Royal, Bradford Royal Infirmary. He's super smashing great. Keep out of the black and in the red. Get yourself better and get out of bed.
In 2008, Jim released a cover of the Was Not Was 80s classic, Walk the Dinosaur. Writing for a thisismoney.co.uk article in 2008, he said, "I paid for my record, Walk the Dinosaur, myself. It was a bargain basement deal which cost me £4,000, but I don't think it'll be downloaded enough to pay that back." 4 years after the interview you've just heard, in early 2011, it was announced that Jim Bowen was recovering in the Royal Lancaster Infirmary after having suffered 2 mild strokes. He had suffered the first stroke on February the 18th and the second whilst in hospital. Before his 2 strokes, Bowen performed on cruise liners and gave corporate after-dinner speeches. By 2012 he was recovering and regaining some mobility once more, and even started performing his stage show You Can't Beat a Bitter Bully, but suffered a 3rd stroke in November 2014 which left him struggling to walk and talk. Jim Bowen died at home on March the 14th, 2018, aged 80. But now, in 2024, it's absolutely amazing to see that Jim lives on, with Bullseye still on our screens on television channel Challenge. In January 2024, some news outlets suggested Bullseye could return to our screens. One report suggested it could be Paddy McGuinness presenting the show this time around. As of yet, nothing has been confirmed by ITV. I hope you've enjoyed this first episode of the Benson interviews. Coming up next month, I'll raid the archives once again, and we'll be backstage at the Batley Frontier, interviewing a classic comedy double act. Until then, bye for now.